name's Nadia, and I'm here on behalf of Birkbeck Stop the War Society. I'm privileged to be joined here today with Clive Stafford Smith.
I've already teased her about that, because it's very silly to say she's privileged, but there we have it.
To be joined here today with Clive Stafford Smith, who needs no introduction. Founder of Reprieve, human rights lawyer. Thank you for taking your time out to speak to us. I've attempted to address questions based on popular consensus from students who want to know about the following issues. My first question is about Shaka, the last British detainee. I was involved with the Save Shaka campaign to some extent, and
I hope you still are.
yeah, of course. I'm going to try my best to obviously campaign for Shaka as much as I can. And we obviously managed to successfully attain 100,000 signatures plus and secure a successful debate in Westminster Hall. In your opinion, can you suggest the most effective action that we can take to bring Shaka home here in the UK and for some advice for our friends in the US? I think I've corresponded with Code Pink and also Witness Against Torture as well.
Well, the first thing you need to realise, I think, is that everything that raises Shaka's profile is helpful. So what we're talking about is the court of public opinion, much more than the court of law. There is not a judge who's going to order his release anytime soon. So that means that the onus is on you to develop lots of publicity to get pressure on the British and the US. While the British are on side, they need to be constantly reminded of that, and there are certain elements of the British who are not on side, namely MI6. So you guys need to do things along these lines. First, you need to recognize that humor is far more persuasive than really boring sincerity. So you need to think of funny things you can do that would help raise his profile. I mean, one might be for any tourist who's going to America, you could sell them Guantanamo insurance, because particularly if you're a Muslim just like you, well, you're a woman, so they wouldn't bang you up in Guantanamo, but any guy, they would. And if you did a spoof campaign where you sold insurance to students here at the college, anyone going to America needed to be insured not only for healthcare, because they don't have healthcare in America, not only for travel insurance, because you're going to get held up at gunpoint. I've been held up many times in America. But also for Guantanamo insurance, you could make a funny thing about that. You could go down to MI6 with a bath full of blood, or the blood equivalent. You could sit outside MI6 and make it clear that we know that they're behind Shaka still being in Guantanamo Bay. And you know why, you've got to expose why. But I think you could make publicity by doing some stunt outside MI6. I was amused the other day by the Guardian thing, where the Guardian had a cartoon of James Bond coming out of the sea at Guantanamo Bay, saying he wanted to kill a few men with beards because they were saying bad things about MI6, namely Shaka. You should do that in the River Thames. You can have someone walk out of the River Thames dressed as James Bond coming up the path at MI6, whatever. I'm just thinking, and you guys are way younger than me, therefore you're not as tired and decrepit. But you'll have between you lots more ideas. But you just got to do them. And the bottom line is, if you do them, then there's some hope of you not ending up in eternal damnation. And if you don't do them, you do. So it's a good deal. As long as you help us, you get some help getting to where you want to be.
So, as well as petitions, demonstrations, vigils, etc.
Some of those things are a bit dull. And while a petition is fine, and I'm glad we had that, vigils, those things have been done too much. And if people want to do them, fine. But let's have some imagination. And when you're doing a petition, for example, we did one down in Dorset to save a local landmark. And instead of just having people sign a petition, we had a photographic petition where you held something against your chest and had your picture taken, and it said, if the trick, in this particular case, it was a thing for kids to skate, and we had it saying, if the trick factory closes, ... And then we took pictures of all of them, 5,000 in one day, and then we emailed them to the useless councillors who weren't doing anything, and we jammed their entire email system for days until they begged us to stop doing it. That's what I call democracy. So, you need to think about ways you can make it more interesting and more effective.
Absolutely. My second question is from Nadia.
Hello, Nadia. I'm very glad you had a question. Why don't you ask it yourself?
We've got here, Obama, as I understand, has signed legislation and he initially promised to veto. It makes it more difficult now to transfer detainees and difficult to close Guantanamo. As a lawyer, can you shed some light on how Obama should go about closing Guantanamo?
First, Rabia, it's changed. The first time he signed it was worse than now. The NDAA of 2012 was significantly better, so it's now easier to get rid of prisoners out of Guantanamo. It's really not that difficult. We can do what we've done for the last 1,000 years. The first thing is we've got 86 of the 166 prisoners have been cleared for release. If they're cleared for release, release them. And we have a list of all of them, and we can help the American government find places for everyone. Take Shaka. No reason why he can't come home tomorrow to his wife and 4 kids here in London. Then you've got another 80 prisoners, and the US wants to try some of them and just hold some of them forever. That's just not the way the world works. If Obama believes in the rule of law, we've got to either try them all or let them all go. And we also don't want to use these kangaroo courts, the military commissions, totally unnecessary. Actually, I love military commissions because they're the most ridiculous legal system in the world that they just made up one day. And for me as a lawyer, it's great fun. I get to go in there and have a whale of a time. When I was representing Binyan Mohammed, I don't think I've ever had so much fun. But it's a pointless legal system. So if the US government has any sense, they'll institute proper Article 3 courts like we have for everyone else in the world. They can try them in Guantanamo for all I care, as long as they give them a jury. And then if people are convicted, they get sentenced. If they're acquitted, they go home. It's just that simple. That's what we've done since the Magna Carta.
You mentioned that it's important to use humour in sort of sinister campaigns like this to attract public.
Sinister is very anti-leftist. Sinister is discrimination against the left hand, that's where it comes from Latin. I think you should stop using it. I like to discriminate against the right wing, not the left wing. If we can just agree to do that.
So basically my comment on how do you deal with cases like Binyan Mohammed and Shaka Ahmed's case, sort of the gory details of sort of like their case, what they've been exposed to, the torture. Emotionally, how can you deal with that as a lawyer? I'm an aspiring lawyer myself, and I want to sort of dabble in human rights cases.
I hope you do more than dabble, for goodness sake. I hope you devote the next 70 years to it. How old are you going to live to? 100? Yeah. So at least 70 years.
Yeah. I want to. I'm just scared I won't get in because of, I don't know, whatever.
There's nothing to be scared about. I will be glad at some point to give you the full lecture on how to create the job that you want to do for the next 50 years.
That'd be amazing. I'll take you up on that offer.
Yeah, right. We'll do that some other time.
But yes, surely, so please tell us, how do you deal with it emotionally? Because I think I watched a YouTube video of you talking about somebody who was on death row, and you were saying that it was the most generous thing that this sort of client did for you was say that, I'm only living because you've sort of like...
Yeah, look, the first thing you've got to recognize as the lawyer is you're not the one getting executed or the one being tortured. And frankly, I don't have a lot of time I understand it on a human level, but I don't have a lot of time for lawyers who think it's all about themselves, because it's not. On the other hand, you must get emotionally involved. The horrendous thing about the British legal system is the emphasis on not being emotionally involved with your clients. That's a recipe for treating people very badly, and I don't believe in that. And I've never represented someone, I hope, who I haven't considered my friend, and I think you have to do that. So when I talked to Binyan Mohammed, for example, the first time, I talked to him over 3 days about the torture he'd been through, and taken to Morocco and having a razor blade taken to his genitals and all that. And I've got to say, look, I came out of that pretty much suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, so you can only just imagine what poor old Binyan went through. But it's really important because, I guess one of my philosophies is I so despise Guantanamo Bay as a principle that if they won't put our clients on trial, which they won't, we're going to put them on trial. And that's what it's all about. I want to give them a fair trial. We'll let them say whatever they want. But we're going to put them on trial for what they've done in the past. I'm not, I should emphasize, into being vindictive against them. I think it's a big mistake when people on the left want to treat people on the right the way people on the right want to treat people on the left. And so I don't believe that at all. And I don't believe in retribution. But on the other hand, I do believe that if we don't learn the lessons of history, and we don't learn what history is, then we'll never avoid repeating it. So we need people to understand what happened to Binyam and what happened to other people in order to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you. My next question is from Tabitha, and she asks,
Tabitha's not here. Where's Tabitha?
Tabitha asks, do you think it conceivable that the uptick in drone strikes under the Obama administration is being used as a primary counter-insurgency tactic in order to prevent further incarceration of suspects in Guantanamo?
Tabitha, is it conceivable? It's the only reason. In fact, interestingly, and I feel a bit of a fool because I laughed at him at the time, when I first went to Guantanamo, there was a right-wing Republican there who said to me, if you insist on legal rights for these people, we'll just kill them. And I laughed at him, I thought, what a barbarian. But that's what's happening, of course. I mean, if you look at Guantanamo since Obama took office, not a single person has been brought there. And the bottom line is American policy now is to execute people without a trial at all. It's bad enough to take people to Guantanamo and hold them without a trial, but to kill them without a trial is something totally new. And what you have to realize, I've been to Pakistan several times. I went with Imran Khan on our march to Waziristan and all that good stuff. And the mistakes that led to putting people like Shaka in Guantanamo, or many other people, including, for example, Yusuf al-Durrani, who was 14 years old at the time, those sort of mistakes are still being made in exactly the same way, except now we're sending Hellfire missiles, blowing up whole families. I was just dealing with a case today where they were trying to kill this guy who was no great threat to anyone. They missed him, they killed the whole family, a father and 5 children, in their efforts to kill some nobody who wasn't any threat to the West anyhow. And that's totally reprehensible, and what we need to do is what we do in all these cases, whether it be the death penalty, Guantanamo Bay, or drones. It's all about politicians and, dare I say it, the media sometimes, creating a hated enemy who we hold up as someone to vilify. And our job, your job for the next 50 years, is to stand between the people doing the hating and the people being vilified and make sure that it doesn't happen. So do I have your sworn promise to do that? I want it on camera. And you, but will you come out behind the camera?
Yeah, that's my fellow law student right there as well. So my next question is from...
Wait a minute, I don't believe I heard a sworn statement from either of us.
If I am able to get into human rights law, I will make it my priority to do that.
If I may say so, that's pretty wishy-washy. I don't accept that.
Okay, let me take an oath, Clive. You get me to take an oath here.
No, I want you to, because actually, the great way to make these things happen is I believe in guilt. I think it's a very effective motivator. So, if you say it now on camera, and you, come out from behind the camera. Come over here. The two of you, I want you to give a blood oath. You're going to spend, your career.
Can maybe
useful.
if you go down the middle?
Okay. So do we have a sworn promise?
Yeah, you do.
Good, all right.
You have my word.
There we go, excellent.
But reprieve will have to help us out though. Like, you have to kick off our ambitions.
That's no problem.
Yeah, please do. We're going to come back to that. My next question is from Waleed, and he asks, in accordance with international law, and in light of recent ruling by the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa High Court, and recent changes in government in Pakistan, what recourse does the new provincial government, KPK, and federal government of Pakistan have in order to bring cessation to drone strikes that clearly violate Pakistani sovereignty? Moreover,
My goodness, this is a long question. Is this a question or a statement?
Moreover, can these strikes be considered acts of war? If so, if Pakistani forces were to respond by shooting down the drones, would they be in their right to do so?
Well, look, let me put it this way. I live in Dorset, in a small village, and if drones were flying round and round overhead in my village, and if suddenly they started firing missiles and killing my 4-year-old child, not only would that drone be shot down instantaneously by the RAF, but there would be massive problems between Britain and the US. Same's true, by the way, if Pakistan started sending drones over Texas and killing the odd Texan because they didn't like him. You can't do that. It's totally illegal and it's utterly wrong. Now, I'm proud to say that it was my colleague Shahzad Akbar who brought the case that Ali is talking about. I mean, one thing you've got to give the Pakistanis, several things, but one thing is they have a rule of law that actually means something. So I think there have been 3 prime ministers effectively deposed or prevented from taking office in the last 2 years, when the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Pakistan said they were corrupt and couldn't serve. Now that is law in action. And if they can prevent prime ministers from serving, they can certainly prevent other countries from committing acts of war. It's not just the Americans, the British are mixed up in this, the Germans are mixed up in this, all sorts of people are. And that judgment of that judge, A, is brilliant and correct, and I think any sane person would agree is correct. But B has to be enforced, and he's very reasonable. He says, look, start off by going to the UN, trying to get a Security Council resolution saying this is illegal, don't do it. The US would veto that, of course, that's fine. Then get a General Assembly resolution, the US can't veto that. Then request the Secretary General to establish a war crimes tribunal, because what the US is doing is a war crime. Then tell the US, stop doing it or we'll shoot you down, give them fair warning. And then do what your military is there for, which is protect your nationals. Now, I'm American. I'm not telling anyone to kill anyone. And there's no one on a drone, thankfully, so you wouldn't kill anyone anyhow. I am not in favor of warfare. But on the other hand, I totally see the perspective of the judge in Peshawar, that the number one duty of the Pakistan Air Force is to protect the Pakistanis. And I can't see for the life of me why they don't do that.
I think I'm going to just declare my sort of obsession with PTI, Pakistani Movement for Justice, that Imran Khan represented, and he was very vocal about it. Probably the only politician that protested with yourself and Code Pink in Waziristan, and unfortunately he didn't make the government. But
That's fine. He's in a very good position to do what he needs to do. And frankly, I'm eternally grateful for the fact that Imran will not find himself in a coalition with a bunch of corrupt people. And so you're much more powerful. I don't understand people who really want to be in government, because frankly, we have much more power than they do, because they're afraid. They're afraid of publicity. They're afraid of public opinion polls, whereas you're not. You don't care. So I think Imran is very well placed, along with the judges, to hold Nawaz Sharif to his pre-election promise to stop drones from killing Pakistanis.
Interesting.
And then he ought to come and play for the Mapperton Marauders, my cricket team, down in the village in Dorset, because we really need to manage to recover.
Did you play much cricket with him in Pakistan then?
No, I'm not quite an Imran's league.
Oh no, but you did climb the very sort of long staircase in Russell Square, Clive did. Made the mistake of it.
I tell you, yeah. These people are torturers.
My next question is really broad, and it's, in your opinion, what is the relationship between law and politics and law?
I hope we're going to get to that.
Oh, we're going to get to that. The end is a closing question.
Okay, what's my opinion now?
So, what is your opinion on the relationship between politics and law? Because reading this a while ago now, but I recall that you did there was a dichotomy between politics and law.
It's not a dichotomy at all. No, it's all symbiotic. Look, everything that any... Oh, look, she's
It's a brilliant book, by the way, and it is actually, sincerely, it's very well written, and I really, really, recommend it.
Well,
and that's
anyway,
Bad Men.
It's not, there's no tension. Everything you do, whether you be a lawyer or anyone else in the world, doesn't matter what qualifications you have. It's all about bringing power to the powerless, right? Now, the courts are one way to do it, but they're a very small part of it. And if you think about Guantanamo Bay, of the 500 prisoners who we first got out of Guantanamo, the first 500, the courts ordered the release of 0, not a single one. We got them out through getting their stories out and embarrassing the heck out of the US because they'd arrested a bunch of nobodies who hadn't done anything. So the court of public opinion in many ways is vastly more important than the court of law. But you might have to look at these things all together. You know, politics is another thing. Politics is just another name for power. So, you know, your job for the next 70 years is to harness whatever power you have. And it can be done by anyone. Let's not just stick with lawyers. I mean, artists, people who have cameras and are making films can do a huge amount of good to help us get justice. That's what it's all about.
So we'll sort of touch on this as well as so the question is, what advice would you give to aspiring human rights lawyers like myself and Rabia?
Well, the first thing you've got to recognize is everything else is pointless. So, you know, there's no point working for some firm that works for corporations. Is utterly pointless.
Absolute tedious.
But it's tedious, you know, when firms have pro bono work, you know, they do 10% of their lives pro bono. You wonder what the other 90% is, frankly. Pro bono means for the good, pro malo means for the bad. But the real issue is that people who do this sort of work love it, and they don't like the other work. So why spend 10% of your life doing something that you enjoy when you can do it the whole time? Now, in terms of how you do it, it's always fascinating to me that schools and universities teach you all this nonsense. You probably didn't have to suffer through 8 years of Latin like I did, but I had to learn Latin for 8 years. You know, if Catullus came up now, I could probably have a good chat with him, but he's been dead for 2,000 years, and it's totally pointless. What they don't teach you are the things you need to know. They don't teach you relationships. British people are notoriously bad at that. They don't teach you how to raise children, which hopefully most of us are going to get to do. And they don't teach you how to create the job that you want to do. And you've got to look at it that way. It's not a matter of how to get the job you want, because then you're dependent on someone else. It's a matter of how to create it. And it's quite simple. First thing, you keep your overhead incredibly low. You know, student loans are an anathema. You should never, ever pay student loans to anyone. And it's perfectly possible to do that. I managed to do that even in America. Second, you must never waste money on buying useless things like clothes and cars and all that stuff. Because all that does is tie you down to something so you can't do what you want to do. Then you've got to raise enough funds to come and volunteer for an organisation like Reprieve. Because honestly, you know, we're just a charity. We don't have a lot of money. And the way we hire people is the way every sensible charity does, which is we see who comes and volunteers with us, who's really, really good, and proves how good they are, and then we hire them. And then what I did was I raised money for my first year as a full-time person just by going around hitting up other people who would pay for it. I was only paid $3,500 my first year. It wasn't much money. But, you know, if you've got a passion for something, you don't need much more. And then you just carry on doing it for the next 50 years, and you're fine. You set up your own charity. It's easy. I've set up lots of them. It's not hard to do. What you don't do is wait for someone to give you a job that you want, because that won't happen.
I think the law in sort of like finding a job and sort of law related is very
competitive. You said finding a job. I say creating a job.
Creating a job.
Don't think about finding a job, because you won't.
Yeah.
But create a job. Create the job you want to do, because you can do that. It's not hard.
Because it is very competitive.
Now, let me ask you this question. How many hours a week do you slave away at your school, university work, and all other things associated with it? How many hours, roughly?
A week.
A week.
Gosh, like we're not very dedicated students to all that activism for us now.
Activism is included. So.
Okay. Gosh, I don't sleep much. Let's put it that way.
So
and I use like
number?
I don't know, but like I would say.
Is it 80?
I don't know, because I don't really consider it. Okay, so like a lot of the day I'm using like social media, researching.
Give me a
so I would
number.
say like about 5 to 7 hours a day.
What are
I
you doing
work
the rest
one
of
day.
the time? You're doing 18 hours of nothing.
I don't know, because I don't want to say that I'm doing 10 hours
How
and then
about
not
you?
doing it.
I wouldn't be able to put a number on it.
Yes, you would.
I mean,
Well, it doesn't matter what you say. I mean, I just want an
I
answer.
don't know, maybe 30 hours a week.
God, you people are slackers. Unbelievable. Okay, now, how many hours a week do you spend creating the job you want to do for the next 50 years? 0, right?
Yeah.
0. This is the problem. It's
But
astounding.
activism is, it is a job.
Activism is a good thing to do. But
And,
it's
and
not
it is
creating
creating
your
jobs
job.
in the sense that it's, you know, where our job is to make the world a better place. And that's, we've created our own job, you know, this
Well, that's
is,
fine. You can do that for the rest of your life, and that's what
but
I do with my life.
I will get, you know, I unfortunately I won't be able to support myself, and I'm lucky that my parents are supporting me, but I guess, you know, we do need to be independent with
No, but
financially.
you've got to listen to me. That you've got to focus some of that time that you spend on creating that job you want. Now, this 30-hour nonsense, I'm astounded. I think you're the slackest couple of people I've ever
I
met.
hope, I'm not saying it's 30 hours, what you said that just came out of it, a number.
Well, look, I keep timesheets, and I average about 80 hours a week on what I don't consider a job. It's great fun. I wish there were 72 hours in a day.
I'm going to do the same thing, Clive, and get back to you on that one. I
Yeah.
don't want to be perceived as a slacker.
I'm glad to hear it. I want to hear from you that you're spending, 5 hours a day creating the job you want to create. You could raise the funds to do it. You can do all sorts of things. And, that's where you've got to work on.
I believe you do offer voluntary placements in Pakistan for death row inmates, and I'm particularly interested.
We do death row. Pakistan has more people on death row than the rest of the world put together. And 9,000 people. And most Pakistanis don't know that. And, also it's the fulcrum of the war of terror, as Borat calls it. It's not the war on terror. And, we offer unpaid internships, but, that's a place we would be willing to try to work out a paid thing if you prove yourself.
I think it's just really about raising the funds as a student, but hopefully I'm going to aim for that position.
So let me talk to your parents. You should always explore your parents. I did that for years. It's a very good thing.
I'm grateful to my parents for all the support that they obviously give me. But hopefully they should be able to help us out with regards to that. But it is quite, there is a sort of you have to do 3 months in a certain period of time, isn't it? And with university you can't do it.
You can. I mean, when I was in university, I told them what I wanted to do, and I said I'd do an independent study project, and I passed off and then worked on death row for 6 months. And I wrote a book in that time, and it was fun, and it was rubbish, and it will never see the light of day. My grandchildren will be allowed to read it. But it really taught me more than I could possibly have contributed from doing that. You could do that with university. They like that sort of thing, because then they don't have to see you for 6 months.
Just to end, I do want to touch on one thing because I've had a fair few questions. This is a pressing question, and it's not worded too great, but is closing Guantanamo, if it ever does happen, solving the issue of torture and indefinite detention?
Never have an absurd notion. Of course not. No, I mean, look, America has plumbed the depths of indefinite detention and torture recently, and that's shocking. But the reason we focus on America is you can't expect other countries to behave themselves if America doesn't. But Pakistan, as you well know, the authorities there will torture you as soon as they look at you. I mean, we represent a number of people on death row in Pakistan. 75% of them were tortured by the police. So it's an epidemic in Pakistan. And then Pakistan, by no means unique. You go around the world, it's happening all around us. So now, there is a massive problem with mistreatment of people all around the world. And that's why all of you people need to spend the next 70 years doing it, because we've got quite a lot of work to do.
Just, you commented...
You were just like a lawyer, and you said that was your last question. So when lawyers say they've got one more question, they mean fine.
Just a really quick question. Can you elaborate to the extent in which the British government have been complicit in extraordinary rendition programs run by successive governments?
Yeah, well, of course, a lot of it is coming out into the public purview now. So, for example, we know with Binyan Mohammed they were mixed up in that. With Binyan they were sending questions to the Americans to put to him when he was being tortured. We know with Shaka that they were there in the background when he was being abused. We know with Abdul Hakim Belhaj that the British were behind rendering him to Gaddafi, as well as Sami al-Sadi, two of the people you may have read about who we represent. And they, the British boasted about it. So Mark Allen, for goodness sake, sent these smarmy emails to Musa Kusa, telling him that we were behind doing these horrible things. Now again, I want to make it clear that with Abdul Hakim Belhaj, he offered to settle his case against the British for £1 and the simple word, sorry, I'm sorry. If the British would simply apologise, that's all he wanted. Now, we're not interested, again, I want to make it clear, we're not interested in sending Jack Straw to prison or Mark Allen to prison. We're interested in getting the truth out and then setting up rules to make sure that no one ever faces this again, the British can.
I think we're coming to a close, although I just want to thank you so much, Clive. I think I've sort of like exploited that. One last question.
I want a copy of this so to make sure she doesn't edit out the promises.
This is all going on just how it is filmed. We won't be editing anything.
I have no commitment, you won't let them edit.
We won't be editing anything. But thank you so much for your time.
Okay,
And thank you again.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can we just